We're coming to the time of year when many students will be starting to think about their preparation for the STEP exams. This video is going to serve as an introduction to the key facts about STEP. If you'll be taking the exam, remember to subscribe and stay tuned because we will be releasing many more videos with a lot more detail on this topic. STEP is always my favourite admissions test to discuss. Aside from taking it myself, I've been a specialist tutor for STEP for nearly a decade, and I marked STEP for Cambridge Assessment 4 times. So hopefully I can offer some unique insights into this really exciting exam. There's been some sort of advanced assessment associated to Oxbridge admissions for maths for decades, and STEP has existed in essentially its current form since 1987, with the specimen test being issued in 1986. It's always been taken in the final term of Year 13. STEP itself stands for Sixth Term Examination Papers. Historically, there were 3 exams in essentially ascending difficulty order: Step 1, Step 2 and Step 3, although Step 1 was discontinued in 2020. The syllabus for Step 3 is slightly more advanced, making heavier use of further mathematics material. The exam has changed hands a lot over time, but it's always been administered by the various divisions of what is now called Cambridge University Press and Assessment, which used to be UCLES. Most recently, the exam was run by Cambridge Assessment from 2008 to 2023, and since 2024, it's been run by OCR. The format has essentially stayed the same, which is quite surprising for an exam that's now around 40 years old. The number of questions has varied a little bit. At one point there were 16, now there are 12, but the majority of the questions are on pure maths, with a small number of applied questions spread across mechanics and statistics. Students choose 6 questions to attempt in 3 hours, and there's no restriction on question choice. Aside from the fact the STEP syllabus, even for Step 2, is more advanced than other admissions tests in maths, such as the MAT and TMUA, it's also really distinctive in terms of its sheer difficulty. The problems are vastly more challenging than those which you can expect to find on other admissions tests, with every problem including subtle points to really test your understanding to the limit, and difficult creative problem-solving elements that require flair and ingenuity to solve. Although this does mean it's a really tough exam, it can also be a lot of fun once you get stuck into it, and it provides fantastic preparation for undergraduate level mathematics at top universities. In particular, the style of the questions really closely mirrors what many STEP takers will later encounter in Cambridge Maths Tripos exams. To provide some context to our discussion about the different requirements universities have for STEP, let's take a moment to collect some key facts about how STEP is graded. The exam is graded on a 5-point scale, with the highest grade being an S, and as other grades in descending order are then 1, 2, 3, U. The boundaries vary each year with reference to how the overall cohort performs, so if the exam is harder, the boundaries will generally be lower. The boundary for a 1 in particular is very closely calibrated in accordance with the performance of Cambridge Maths offer holders on the exams. Roughly speaking, around 5 to 10% of STEP takers will score an S, and around 20 to 30% of STEP takers will score a 1 or higher. STEP was originally an entrance exam for Cambridge Mathematics, and it remains most strongly associated with the Cambridge Maths course. The vast majority of offer holders to read mathematics at Cambridge will be required to secure a grade 1 on both Step 2 and 3 in order to secure their offer. In some cases, applicants may even be made an S1 offer, particularly in the case, for instance, of reapplicants. In many cases, students who narrowly fall short of their STEP offers may still secure admission, but it does leave a lot to chance. Other universities do also make use of STEP as part of their admissions process. Maths applicants to Imperial or Warwick ideally are asked to take the TMUA, but students who don't have a TMUA score, for instance if applying after the TMUA registration deadline, will be asked to sit STEP as an alternative part of a conditional offer. In particular, conditional offers will include a requirement of scoring a grade 2 on at least one of the 2 STEP papers. The Department of Statistics at Warwick doesn't require an admissions test as a compulsory part of the application process, but they do use it as a means of obtaining a reduced offer. In the TMUA, they require a 5.0 to meet this threshold, whereas on STEP, it is again a grade 2 on either paper. Courses under the umbrella of the Department of Statistics also offer a monetary prize of £2,000 for applicants who put Warwick as their firm choice on UCAS, and to achieve either a grade 1 on either STEP paper or at least a 7.5 on the TMUA. Durham also uses STEP as part of their pathways for a reduced offer, so again a 5.0 on TMUA or at least a grade 2 on either STEP paper will qualify students for a reduced offer. UCL also uses STEP, so UCL applicants can secure a reduced offer with either a grade 2 on a STEP paper or alternatively by performing sufficiently well on another exam called the AEA. And finally, Bath requires students who only have an AS level in further mathematics to take an extra admissions test to compensate, and this can either be a grade 2 on STEP or, again, a sufficient performance on the AEA. The AEA, like the TMUA, is generally considered to be much easier than STEP, and so may be the preferred pathway. So why should you take STEP? Well, you might be required to, as a mandatory part of an offer to read mathematics at Cambridge, Imperial or Warwick. You might need a shot at a reduced offer from Durham or UCL, or need to take an extra admissions test for Bath because of not taking the full A level in further maths. But in these cases, I would recommend thinking seriously about the appropriate alternative, whether that be TMUA or AEA, since they are much easier. In the case of courses which accept TMUA, it's also important to remember that TMUA is taken much earlier in the year, which means you could take TMUA in the first instance and then retain STEP as a fallback if that doesn't go to plan. Aside from taking STEP as part of a university offer, many students choose to take it in Year 12 as part of a warm-up to a Cambridge Maths application. Note that even if you do achieve a grade 1 in Year 12, there's a good chance Cambridge will still require you to sit STEP again. But having a grade 1 or even a grade 2 in Year 12 on your record will seriously strengthen your application. Totally aside from university admissions, you may choose to take STEP for fun because it's a challenge, or more pragmatically, to start to build your math skills, in particular your creative problem-solving skills, which will be in very high demand when you get to an undergraduate level. The reason Cambridge and other universities like STEP so much is because it correlates very strongly with performance at an undergraduate level and is designed to replicate that style of doing mathematics. So if you spend time on STEP, you will be building these skills. In terms of the timeline and key dates, the registration for STEP 2 and 3 generally opens in early March and closes in early May. The exams themselves happen in early to mid-June, and generally speaking, STEP 2 is usually around a week earlier than STEP 3. The results for STEP are released on A-level results day. With this in mind, if you're planning to take STEP, the time to begin preparing really is now at the time of release, early mid-January. And by the time it gets to, for example, mid-February, late February, it's going to be very difficult to catch up. STEP 2 and 3 follow the same format. They're each 3 hours long, and all of the questions are in long form. There are no multiple choice questions. There are 3 sections, Section A, Section B, and Section C. Section A on pure maths consists of 8 questions, Section B on mechanics consists of 2, and Section C on probability and statistics also has 2 questions. Note that before 2019, Section C had 3 questions, and when you go to the really old papers, there's further variation in the number of questions. Each question is marked out of 20, and you choose 6 to attempt, with no restriction on the breakdown between the different sections. This means that the exam overall is marked out of 120, and if you do attempt more than 6 questions, only your best 6 will count. The grade boundaries do vary quite a lot, but the threshold for a 1 is generally somewhere between 60 and 80. Traditionally, the boundaries for Step 2 have been a bit higher, although this has been a slightly less significant effect in the most recent years. There's no prescribed method for solving a STEP question, and if you use correct mathematics, properly justified, you will receive full credit. However, if you don't justify your steps, if you leave jumps in your reasoning without proper explanation, you can and will lose method marks. And take it from an ex-STEP examiner, this point is interpreted harshly. There's no formula booklet for STEP, nor is there a calculator, so there is a lot to memorise. The STEP specification is designed so that it overlaps with AS and A-level mathematics and further mathematics qualifications taken in the UK. Currently, Step 2 is essentially A-level maths plus first year A-level further maths, while Step 3 also makes use of second year A-level further maths. There are some slight quirks. For example, continuous random variables feature on Step 2, even though, due to more recent A-level syllabus changes, they're generally optional content for A-level further maths. Now, due to the fact A-level further maths on most exam boards does include an option, specialising in mechanics, statistics, etc., almost all students will lack some Step 3 knowledge. It's generally a very good idea to brush up on and learn this material, because as a rule of thumb, questions on more advanced material actually tend to be slightly easier. We will make a video specifically on this topic, so do stay tuned. Students who take the IB at higher level, in general, will also be very well prepared for STEP. The main blind spot may be some missing mechanics knowledge, although if you also take higher level physics, this may be less of an issue. The spec updated for the 2026 exam is now available. It's worth going through this point by point, just to make sure you are familiar with all of the required background knowledge, especially if you take an exam board other than OCR. Not all points of the STEP specification are equal. Certain topics, like integration and graph sketching, come up particularly frequently, and the best way to develop a familiarity with these preferred topics is to do lots of past papers. Other topics, which are technically examinable, are highly de-emphasised because they're not well suited to interesting problems. For example, hypothesis testing for statistics, the trapezium rule, and also other numerical methods in pure maths. It's very difficult to write a question which tests creative problem-solving flair in these areas, so the examiners generally steer clear of them. There have been some changes to the specification. In particular, in 2019, when Step 1 was withdrawn, a few topics were added and removed from Step 2 and 3 respectively, so do watch out for these if you're using older past papers. If you're only taking Step 2, it's also important to take particular care with the first year further maths material, because before 2019, Step 2 papers will only have used single maths material, so you might like to use some supplementary practice, or just to pay particular attention to the post-2020 papers in this case. I hope you found this quick introduction to STEP helpful. If you're thinking of taking STEP, do remember to subscribe. In the coming weeks, we'll be releasing many more videos on this topic, including a guide to choosing STEP questions, advice on how to use STEP past papers, and also training on how to set out your work like a STEP examiner and make sure you gain all the method marks. If you're interested in more personalised advice on your STEP preparation, or would like to learn about the STEP preparation programme we offer at Vantage, do also remember to visit our website. Thanks very much for watching.